A major new escalation is unfolding between the United States and Iran. The U.S. military has launched a powerful new wave of strikes inside Iran after 3 commercial ships were attacked while passing through the Strait of Hormuz. American officials say the operation targeted more than 80 Iranian military locations, including air defense systems, command centers, coastal radar sites, anti-ship missile capabilities, and dozens of Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats. Iran has responded with threats and reported attacks linked to U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. And now, the fragile agreement that was supposed to reduce tensions between Washington and Tehran appears to be collapsing. So what exactly happened? Why is the Strait of Hormuz so important? And could this crisis pull the entire Middle East into a wider war? In this video, we break down everything you need to know. Intro music/channel ident. This is NeuralWire News. Subscribe for daily U.S. and world news updates. Section 1. What happened? 1 o'clock. The latest confrontation began after 3 commercial vessels were reportedly struck while traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most important shipping routes. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. The U.S. says Iran was responsible for the attacks on the ships. According to U.S. Central Command, the ships were commercial vessels carrying civilian crews, and Washington described the attacks as a serious threat to international shipping. The United States then launched what it called a new round of offensive strikes against Iran. U.S. forces said they hit more than 80 targets using precision weapons. The targets reportedly included Iranian air defense systems, command and control networks, coastal radar installations, anti-ship missile sites, and more than 60 small boats linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard forces. The U.S. says the goal was to reduce Iran's ability to attack ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. But Iran has strongly rejected the U.S. narrative and accused Washington of escalating the conflict. Section 2. Why the Strait of Hormuz matters. 2:30. To understand why this situation is so serious, we need to understand the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most strategically important locations on Earth. A huge share of the world's oil and natural gas exports passes through this route every day. Oil from countries including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, and Iran moves through the Strait of Hormuz before reaching global markets. That means any disruption in this area can affect oil prices, shipping costs, fuel prices, and the global economy. If commercial ships begin avoiding the route, energy supplies could become more expensive and slower to reach major markets. This is why attacks on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz immediately raise alarm across the world. For the United States and its allies, keeping this shipping lane open is a major strategic priority. For Iran, the strait is also a powerful point of leverage. Iran has long argued that if it cannot export oil freely or if it faces military pressure, other countries should not expect business to continue normally through the Gulf. That is why this waterway has become one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the U.S.-Iran conflict. Section 3. The U.S. military response. 4 o'clock. The U.S. military response was significant. Instead of targeting just 1 or 2 locations, American forces reportedly struck dozens of sites across Iran. The targets were focused on military infrastructure connected to coastal defense and maritime operations. This includes radar systems that can track ships, missile sites that could target vessels, command centers that coordinate military activity, and small fast boats often used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard in Gulf waters. U.S. officials say these strikes were meant to send a clear message. The message is simple. Attacks on commercial shipping will bring a direct military response. The U.S. says freedom of navigation in international waters must be protected. But this strategy also carries serious risks. Every strike inside Iran increases the chance that Iran will retaliate against U.S. bases, allied countries, oil facilities, or shipping routes. And that is exactly what appears to be happening now. Section 4. Iran's response. 5:30. Following the U.S. strikes, Iran warned that it would take whatever measures it considered necessary. Reports say Iran targeted or threatened U.S.-linked military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. Bahrain is especially important because it hosts the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet plays a major role in protecting shipping routes across the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and nearby waters. Kuwait is also home to important U.S. military facilities. Any attack, missile launch, drone strike, or escalation involving these countries could quickly widen the conflict. The danger is that the crisis may no longer remain only between the United States and Iran. Other Gulf countries could become involved, either because they host U.S. military bases or because their oil facilities and ports are located close to the conflict zone. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, and Oman are all watching this situation closely. A wider regional conflict could threaten oil infrastructure, airports, ports, military bases, and civilian populations. Section 5. The peace deal is falling apart. 650. This new escalation is especially important because it comes after an interim agreement between the United States and Iran. That agreement was supposed to reduce fighting and create space for negotiations. But the latest tanker attacks and U.S. strikes have put that arrangement under extreme pressure. President Donald Trump has said the agreement is effectively over. At the same time, U.S. officials have revoked Iran's ability to openly sell oil under the previous interim arrangement. This is a major economic move. Iran's oil exports are extremely important for its economy. If Iran loses the ability to sell oil openly, pressure on Tehran could increase sharply. But Iran may also see this as another reason to push back harder in the Strait of Hormuz. That creates a dangerous cycle. One side takes military or economic action. The other side responds. Then the first side responds again. And each new step makes diplomacy more difficult. Section 6. What this means for oil prices and the world economy. 810. The Strait of Hormuz crisis is not just a military issue. It could affect people around the world. If shipping becomes dangerous, oil tankers may delay travel, change routes, or demand higher insurance coverage. Those extra costs can eventually affect oil prices. Higher oil prices can lead to higher fuel prices. And higher fuel prices can affect transportation, food delivery, airline tickets, manufacturing, and everyday costs. Countries that depend heavily on imported energy could feel the impact quickly. Asian economies are especially exposed because many rely on oil and gas shipments moving through the Gulf. The United States is less dependent on Gulf oil than it was decades ago, but global oil prices still affect American consumers and businesses. So even if the conflict happens thousands of miles away, it can still affect gas prices and inflation in the United States. Section 7. Could this become a full-scale war? 930. The biggest question now is whether this could turn into a much larger war. At the moment, both sides appear to be trying to show strength. The United States wants Iran to stop targeting commercial shipping. Iran wants to show that it can respond to U.S. military pressure. But the risk of miscalculation is very high. A single missile that hits a major U.S. base, a major oil facility, or a civilian ship could trigger a much larger military response. Another danger is that armed groups allied with Iran could become more active across the region. U.S. bases in Iraq, Syria, Bahrain, Kuwait, and other locations could face increased threats. Israel could also become involved if the conflict expands further. And if major Gulf oil facilities are targeted, the global economic consequences could be severe. For now, the situation remains highly unstable. Diplomacy is not completely impossible, but the latest strikes have made a peaceful agreement much harder to achieve. Outro 1050. The U.S. strikes on Iran after the tanker attacks in the Strait of Hormuz mark one of the most serious escalations in the current crisis. More than 80 targets were reportedly hit. Iran has promised a response. The interim agreement appears to be breaking down, and the world is now watching closely to see whether this becomes a wider regional war. The next few days could be critical. Will the U.S. and Iran return to negotiations? Or will more attacks, retaliation, and military action push the Middle East toward an even larger conflict? We will